'cause we'll work it out. Yeah, we'll work it out. I'll be doing this if you ever doubt, till the love runs out, till the love runs out. I'll be your ghost, your game, your stadium. I'll be your 50,000, clapping like one. I feel alright, and I feel alright, 'cause I worked it out. Yeah, I worked it out. I'll be doing this if you ever doubt, till the love runs out, till the love runs out. I've got my mind made up and I can't let go. I'm killing every second till it saves my soul. I'll be running till the love runs out, till the love runs out. And we'll start a fire and we'll shut it down, till the love runs out, till the love runs out.
Hello, I'm Jerry McKee, and welcome to Prime Time. It is 7 o'clock. If you didn't hear the bells and the whistles and the sick cuckoo clock, well, you didn't turn your volume on. We've got a special guest. We've got Jerry Williams, who is the president of the Union County Historical Society, and we have got Howard Lawson, who's the director of the museum. We're going to talk about the history of Union County and a lot of different things that comes up that you might not know about. It might be say, hey, wait a minute, that was my great grandfather, or that was my grandfather. And it might be somebody you knew and something that you didn't know. But, you know, we all got to have some history. You need to talk to your great grandparents, your grandparents, get some history in their family, and you might learn that, you know, you might not be kin to them. But again, that's history. And let me switch over to these guys here. How y'all doing?
We're well, sir.
Well, that's great. Glad to have you. And we got Jerry Williams, who's the president of the Union County Historical Society. And how did you take this role? I mean, have you always loved history or?
Yeah, when I was in school, I really wasn't good at math and English, but I enjoyed history. And as I grew older and working, I lived in Union, been in Union all my life, and I love it here. It's a great town. But I was on the road most of the time and didn't really get involved with a lot of the historical society or anything like that because I was in sales, and you guys mentioned working 40, 50, 60, 80 hours a week. I did that. But when I retired, I said, I got to do something. And I went on the board of directors at the museum and kind of got shoehorned into being president. But the biggest thing that got me interested in it was one day I realized what I didn't know about our community. And that was the best resource that I had to come and find what was going in town. And while I say that, there are some people that have contributed immensely to our museum, and we thank them for it. And we're trying to continue that legacy. We're hoping as we continue forward, we can get some younger people involved in our museum and get them interested. One of the things that's occurred to me, and very recently, and you probably know this, we're starting to see some growth in Union.
Yes.
From people from the outside. And my thing is, I want to convey to these folks, hey, this is the community that you're coming into, and this is our history. And we'd like to convey that to you so you know where you're at, who we are. And I love Union. I think it's a great town.
Well, what the people that wants to join the Historical Society, how would they go about doing that?
We can drop by the museum. We have the applications there. It's $30 for an individual, and Howard has those numbers: 30 for an individual.
We have a Patreon at
we have
50.
a Patreon at 50.
Correspondents, I think, are 300 and 500.
Yeah. So, and it's open. We're open to anyone that
Right.
would like to join it. But what we're doing right now is I'm trying to get. We mentioned Macy Petty. We're trying to get Macy. She's going to be. I tell her she's my unappointed public relations director. Macy's
She's a good one.
Very energetic, and
Yes.
we like that. We've also got another young lady there that helps us a lot, especially with things like the technology.
Right.
They can bring a lot to the table with us, and but demographically, we're old, and we need someone to sustain it. And that's my personal focus right now, is find someone to sustain what we're doing there.
Now, what does the Historical Society, what do you do? Because some people hear that and really don't know, well, what do you do?
Well, the biggest thing we do is we, of course, we sponsor the museum. We're starting to, and we'll talk about it in a minute. We're trying to bring in some speakers. We're bringing in Durant Ashmore and probably this week, and then in July we're bringing in Brent Holcomb, who is a genealogist.
Oh, okay, that'd be interesting.
And then August, I think Ms. McCauley, October, Ms. McCauley, who is the lady with the balloon.
Right.
She's coming back to do a presentation. So we're trying to do some things in the community. We're constantly seeking information, because what I found out in my later years, I wished I'd asked my grandma and my grandpa a lot of things. And our theme right now is, if you know something, tell somebody.
Write it down or tell somebody.
Write it down,
Right.
because if you're gone, it's lost.
It is, and there's been some fine history lost.
It is, and of course, Howard and those guys work on inside. I haven't done it this year, but I was bouncing around a lot of times in the woods, finding places like, Juice Harp Springs and Orange Hall, Buffalo Lick Springs, finding those kind of places. Just did a little thing on West Springs and the West Springs Hotel, and there's a lot of people don't know a lot about those things. And we don't know a lot about it, but we're just trying to draw in as much. And if somebody says, well, that ain't actually true, or that's not what happened, we want to know that.
Exactly. And you mentioned juice harp, and a lot of people don't know what a juice harp is. When I was a kid, it hurt my teeth.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something else, and I mentioned this on the radio the other week. I love asking young people, do you know what a lint head is?
Now, see, I don't know what that is.
You don't know what a lint head? A lint head is someone that worked in the mill, and they came out of the mill with shards of lint in their hair.
Yeah.
And only textile people know that.
Yep, I did know that.
Yeah.
Lint head.
Lint heads. But those are some of the things. It just, matter of fact, sometimes that opens up a conversation.
It does, and we have, and that's when they can take a trip to the museum to learn a lot about what these things are. I see pictures on Facebook sometimes that they said, do you know what this is? Well, I know, I'm 70 years old. I know what they are, because either I've used it or something, but you got these younger kids that don't know a lot of things that transpired, and this modern stuff, where it came from.
One of the things that we have in the museum, and Howard will probably talk about it a little bit, and I love doing it, is going in. We have Howard, 75, 80 years of the Union Daily Times, the Progress newspaper, all that on microfiche. And it is a valuable resource if anybody that wants to, hey, what did Union look like 50 years ago? And that's what I've done, is gone back and looked at the Union Times and some of those papers of what we were in the 50s and the 60s to where we are now. And NAFTA and CAFTA killed us. Say what they want to, but it killed us.
Right. And I just wondering, and now you put, microfiche, or is it going to eventually go to a digital?
We hope.
We want to. We looked at that, and it was $1 million, and we don't have that money.
We're in the process right now. We've got a grant request in with the Tim Kidd Foundation for some funds to help do exactly that.
Right.
To get the equipment that we need to do it with and do it well. Because we have a large collection. When the Union Daily Times went out of business, they brought us their negative collection.
Oh, wow.
Now, it's not in any shape, form, or order. It's just
right.
There's a file with a date. And if you follow us on Facebook, you've probably seen sometimes Carol will put up photos occasionally that she's gone through and found something she thought was cool, showed people from Union from the 70s or the 60s, and she'll post those as she finds them. Now, the sad part is we get a lot of people requesting, well, do you have a picture of my ball team? And it's like, We may have, but we'll have to just run across it when we run across it. I can't dig for it.
Now,
There's no index to the photos, so to speak.
now, Howard, you director of the museum, and if when I know when someone passes away,
Mhm.
and younger folks sometimes thinks, "Oh, this is nothing but junk. Let's throw it."
Yeah, I would prefer they bring it to us and let us take a look at it, or at least give us a call, send us a picture. Hey, are you interested in this item? Because to you it might not be nothing important, and for us it may be the holy grail. It might not be worth a lot of money, but as far as an artifact that deals with Union County, it may be priceless.
Now, you've been director for 2 years
Two
right
years
now.
at the end of the month.
Now, what got you interested in?
I have to go back to my grandfather. I grew up at his knee pretty much. Every step he made, if I had it available, I went with him.
That's how you
And-
learn.
Yeah. And so I would come to town with him to work on Saturday mornings early. And as we rode around the county doing whatever, fooling with horses, hunting ads for the newspaper, what have you, Grandpa would tell me stories about this building or that building or what happened here. And that kind of ignited my passion for history at an early age. And so on through life, I always studied history on my own time between having a job, having a family. And then when I moved back home in 2008 from Florida, I kind of got more back into railroad history of Union County, specifically the BUC, and started going to the museum up there looking for information. And they recommended that I see Dan O'Shields. And so I went down and talked to Dan, and Dan says, well, to be honest with you, the guy you really need to talk to is Robert. He's my co-author. They wrote the book on the BUC, and Robert actually worked at the museum. I was just going in on the wrong days. And so I got to know Robert and started hanging out up there. And the next thing I know, they appointed me to the board of directors. And then when Catherine Smith decided to take a job at Spartanburg County Library, they left the position of executive director open. And I decided, what the heck, I'm not doing anything else meaningful. So I put in for the job, and of course they handed it to me.
Now, when in the museum, when you go in, do you have a particular order that you have things in there? You got certain things showcased?
Specifically, it's not laid out like in a chronological order, like you go up kind of through a period of time in history. Ours is more of an eclectic collection. We do have certain sections. We have our sheriff display of all our sheriff memorabilia, pistols, weapons, handcuffs, badges, pictures, all in one kind of little section. Then we have a doctor hospital section that you come through. Then on towards the back, we have our military section covering wars from the Revolutionary War all the way to the present day. Then we have another section in the back of our second bay that deals with the mill life. And then we have a farm wall section that shows a bunch of farm implements from back in the day. And it's just an eclectic collection sparsed out all over the place.
What is one thing that in that museum that was either brought there or you saw that just blew you away? And Jerry's going to be for you also.
One of the things that I really like, and it's unique. Well, there's actually two things. There's a flag there from the Pea Ridge Volunteers that was brought back by Mr. Sanders in the Civil War. He didn't surrender the colors of the Appomattox. He wrapped them around his body and brought them back to South Carolina and brought them back to Pea Ridge. And that's there under glass. And there's also a flag there with the Johnson rifles. And there's also a table there that was supposed to have been used for, then I don't want to get off on the Civil War, but it was used for the signing of the secession.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, writing of the secession, but that's from Rose Hill.
Wow.
But
was Davis, was he the one?
Gist was the
okay.
governor.
Okay.
But there's some other local things. I love the textile part. I'll throw this in. Howard mentioned the military. In 1971 or 72, we had a picture. I was in Charlie Company, which was the Jonesville National Guard unit back then. And they were closing that armory up and I got the picture. So I brought that picture from Jonesville National Guard and donated it to the museum. So my thing is, I tell people, you know, you're old when your picture's in the museum. So, but my picture's in the museum, along with a lot of my friends who are not with us now.
Right.
But there's a lot, like Howard said, there's a lot of eclectic stuff there. Things from the textile industry. There's some Union pottery there. That the Union pottery is what kind of I like. I mean, it's somebody made that.
Right. And no, on those potteries, sometimes you can look underneath them and be someone's initial or a date.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the bigger pottery was Owensby. The Owensby pottery is expensive pottery to purchase today. And we've been told that the piece we have on display is worth about $5,000.
Wow. Wow.
But those potters were in Union County, but they eventually moved down towards Augusta in the Aiken County area. But they got their start in Union.
Now, can someone that say got something old, can they come down there and bring it to you and kind of see if you know estimate? I know you're not the Antique Roadshow.
Yeah, we're not Antique Roadshow. Sadly, I can't do. I don't do appraisals.
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
feel comfortable doing that.
Well,
Sometimes I can identify stuff just because I've seen it before.
Mhm.
But
Now some of the buildings that they marked historic.
Mhm.
Are y'all involved with that in helping
we do.
with that landmark to get it
Yeah.
recognized?
We have a map of the historical trail for Union County. We keep it at the museum, and it's for that's free to anyone who wants to come by and get one. It shows all the locations that were on it at the time. None have been added. We were responsible for pretty much helping write the histories for those houses when that was put together. Sadly, I wish I had more information on most of them. It's
Right.
At times it can get kind of sparse.
Yeah, and that's where I guess the public can help
Sure.
with that. Some
Yeah.
of their kin people that's written down, so that because years ago people used to write, especially ladies, in diaries,
Yeah.
and things, detail things.
We were very blessed to be in the 70s. In the early 80s there was a group that got together and put together the heritage edition of the Union County history. And we sadly just lost, I think, the last
Ann
surviving
Patrick, yeah.
member of Miss Ann Patrick.
Dr. Charles was the last surviving member.
He wasn't on that committee.
He wasn't there.
Yeah, he wasn't on that committee, but she just passed away. But anyhow, yeah. So we have those. We keep those for sale at the museum, and they have a lot of family histories in them.
Mm-hmm.
Those ladies in the '70s they were in our organization. Were very busy. They were out in the cemeteries. They would go out to all the cemeteries and just go through the cemetery and write down everything they found on the tombstone. They managed to put that into book form.
Now they had some things on tombstones
Okay.
back then that,
Yeah.
and see, I like doing that when I'm walking
Mhm.
through the tombstones, not like at night or nothing, but just walking through there to see names and what people put on there,
Right.
the subscription and stuff.
We have got one guy in Union. His name's Mike Becknell, and Mike Becknell is a subject matter expert on every graveyard in Union. If you want to know anything about a graveyard in Union,
Just ask him.
yes, he took us to one at the Fish Dam. It's in Carlisle, and I was amazed at the monuments and size of some of those mausoleums down there from the 1830s.
Wow.
Because those people had so much money because of the Broad River, the Enoree River, the what's the other river? Not Packers, Broad River, Enoree River, and Tiger River. They all converged down there, and those bottom lands were just absolutely great for cotton.
Wow.
And matter of fact, I did some research on Tuckertown and down through there, and I found out that Mabington, Tuckertown, that area, because those three rivers converged there, was the richest rural area in the United States at one time because of how fertile it was.
Right.
Of course, that's no longer because the National Forest has bought it. I said rural area now, that's not related to Charleston. You had Charleston and other communities, but outside of that, it was the richest rural area in the United States.
Who was the instruments of, and when was the museum founded?
Museum got started back in 1975 with all the fervor at that time going on with the upcoming celebration of the nation's 200th anniversary. some local citizens, Dr. Whitener being the main one, decided they'd reform the historical society, and they first order of business they thought was we needed a museum to display all the artifacts we had. And so they put it together, and we opened, I think, in November of '76.
You know what was the first artifact put in there?
I don't. Not off the top of my head.
It just kind of, to me, that'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
In 70s,
I think
1970s.
Mr. Buck Arthur was a big
Mr.
contributor.
Buck Arthur was
Yeah.
as well.
One of the things that we have that's just interesting too, it's talking about time forgot. We've got some equipment in there from Dr. Long, who
Oh.
was the first black doctor in Union County, and African American doctor. But it's some very interesting stuff in there that he used, and it's pretty interesting.
Now, the let people know because they can see behind you that the Union County Museum is downtown.
Right.
Downtown.
Yeah, 127 West Main.
Now, it used to be somewhere else. Was
We used to be on the other end of Main Street, the corner of Main and Church Streets, above the old American Federal Building there,
Oh, okay.
back on the second floor. And we were there until the late 1990s when they sold the building. They were letting us use the upstairs for free. And then they sold the building, so we lost our space, and we went into storage for a few years. And then in 2002, the building we currently occupy on Main Street there became available, and so we moved into it. We've been there a little over 22 years now.
and I can imagine you're probably outgrowing it.
We are. I have about half as much stuff as I have on display downstairs in storage in the basement. Sadly, can't display it all.
Right. Yeah, it'd be nice to have a bigger place where people can come out and see everything laid out.
It
And
would.
what are your times open there?
We're open Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays from 10 until 6. And then we're also open on the first Saturday of every month from 10 to 6. Now, we will not be open July the 5th, which is the first Saturday for July this year, because it falls right behind the holiday, which is the 4th of July, which is on Friday. So we'll be closed on Friday, and we'll take the weekend off.
Oh, I thought maybe it's closed on the 5th. That's my birthday. I
No,
celebrate my birthday. It's
Happy birthday in advance.
now, when people come in, do you have a register there? They can
We do.
register?
We don't charge admission. All we do is ask that you sign the register, because every year that's one of our milestones we present when we go to request funding from the city and county. And we let them know how many visitors we've had. Last year, something around the neighborhood of 2,500 visitors, I believe. 38 states and 3 foreign countries.
Wow, that's great. And did you have a place on where they can put their emails?
We do. It has their space for your name, number in your party, your address, and your email address as well.
That's a good tool to use to send out information.
Yeah.
And
And of course, for those who are members of the Historical Society, we put out a quarterly newsletter every 3 months. Comes out in January, April, June. What's it? January, April, July, and then again in September. No, I take it back. Got it wrong. It's December. We start in December, and it's every quarter. But yeah, that's usually an 8 to 12 page, 8.5 by 11 that we put together. It's all historically related to Union County usually.
Oh, wow.
Either some artifact or some area of Union County we try to highlight. This month, or this quarter issue, we're highlighting the West Springs community. We're doing the Allman Long family out of Jonesville, and several other things we got going on in there.
Now,
And that comes with membership.
right.
If you become a member of the Historic Society, you automatically get a newsletter.
Okay. Now, say someone is not a member, or maybe out of town that's coming through, and would you have those where they could purchase?
We do. After we send them out, we have I usually print 25 to 30 more copies than we actually need, just in case we have an accident or lose something. So, but yeah, what we do is we put those in the gift shop, and they are for sale for $2 a piece till they run out. If somebody comes in and requests a back issue, because everything now is done in a digital format,
Right.
I can actually print them off a copy.
No.
It won't be connected like the original was, but you can put it together with staples if you want.
Okay. Now, when someone comes in to visit. I know, like in some art galleries, you cannot take flash photos or anything
Yeah,
like that.
we're a little bit more lax about that. We don't mind taking photos as long as you kind of limit your flash photography in the museum. I'm not going to still stick in the bud. There are some things that, like the two Confederate battle flags that we have on for display, we keep those covered because they're silk, hand painted on silk. And
Right.
so those we would ask that people not take pictures of when we unveil them. But pretty much everything else in the museum, we use a lot of cell phone photography in our genealogy department and reference library.
Right.
Because it's easier to take a picture of it than to try to copy it on a copy machine. So
Yes, and plus you, with the way the phones and the cameras are now, they're more detailed
yeah,
than a
with the
scan.
megapixel
Scan
ability.
brings it down a little bit.
Yeah.
I work
Well,
on
most people do scans at your standard scan is 200 to 300 DPI.
right.
Now I work with a lot of photography, and if I'm scanning an old photograph, I'll do a 1200 DPI scan. It may take 3 to 5 minutes for that thing to scan through.
Yep.
But
Yeah, I've got one kind of like 2400, and
Yeah.
it's but you're right, and it does take a long time, but you get a good quality,
yes,
but in a big file.
yes, I've got. Speaking of files, I visited the before I took the job as executive director. I spent a week at the National Archives in Washington D.C. the previous August, and brought back some digital scans of railroad valuation maps. Now, these maps are pretty much 5 feet by 10 feet, and they cover about 4 miles of railroad track and showing all the right of way and who owned the property. Problem is I can look at them in my Photoshop program, but I can't do anything with them because they're too huge. They're in the 50 and 60,000 K.
Oh wow,
It's,
yeah, that's a big file.
yeah. But I had them do 600 DPI scans. That was the largest they could do. But the quality of pulling them up on a digital monitor, I can adjust and look at it real close. So I can see some detail. I just can't print the whole thing, or edit it down any.
Now, when you've got things in there, and I don't want people to just get the impression that it's just in Union here, but you've got like Carlisle, Jonesville, Lockhart.
Right.
You've got
We've got artifacts from all over Union County: Lockhart, Pinckneyville, Jonesville, Kelly, Kelton, Pea Ridge, Sedalia, Carlisle, Santa, which Carlisle used to be known as Fish Dam when it was originally formed.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's one of the original settlements in Union County was the Fish Dam settlement down there. That goes back to the Paleo Indian times before white settlement. There's actually a fish dam or fish weir in the river that the Indians built down there that allowed them to easier to catch fish, and that's where it gets its name. When the water's down low, you can see it.
Right.
But yeah, and Sedalia, Cross Keys, going back into areas like the Mount Lebanon, Putman, West Springs, Glen Springs, Coleraine.
Yeah.
And there's hidden areas Union County's forgotten. Little places like Herbert or Ada. Herbert was along the railroad line, the southern line where it goes out of Union County across the Broad River. Well, on both sides of the river, they're sprung up little townships to service the railroad. And these places had shops and stores. One of my aunt's ancestors lived in Herbert, and he was a shoemaker.
Wow.
And then, of course, Ada was a section hand town between Delta Farms and Carlisle, just across the Tiger River, I think it was. That because of when the dieselization of railroading took over, the need for all these little stops to get water, because that's the most important thing for a steam engine was water, more so than wood. So they had all these little stops every so often. Plus, you had crews to look after the track. Well, all that was no longer necessary, so those communities just evaporated.
And Harry, that's one of the things that we're really aggressively trying to solicit is some of this information of these communities that we don't know about. If people in Carlisle, we're trying to get some information. Jonesville, those outlying areas that if you know something, come tell us.
Yeah,
you got something we need to see, let us look at it.
Carlisle's a fascinating study because at the early 1900s, it had everything it needed to blow up as big as Spartanburg.
Wow.
It had 2 major railroads, it had intersection and interchange down there. It had banks, it had hotels, it had doctors. It had the works.
Had the river.
Only thing it was lacking was an industry. Robert Grady and I have come up with a theory. T.C. Duncan was the man who built not only Union and Buffalo Mills, he also built the Neil Schultz power plant and was responsible for running the railroad from Buffalo to Union and from Union on down to a place called Pride, which was about 3 miles east of Carlisle. When Cone Mill came to Union in the 1950s, they purchased a piece of land. Part of that piece of land that they bought came from United Merchants. United Merchants were the people who wound up buying Union and Buffalo Mills. We think that before T.C. Duncan got into financial difficulty in the early 1900s, well, about 1920, I think, is when he got really in financial trouble. We think he had the idea to build a 3rd mill in Union County, but it was going to be built in Pride or somewhere near Pride on property that Cone Mill eventually owned. We haven't yet proved that, but that's our theory. We lost Mr. Jack Rash, who used to be the plant engineer down there. We lost him last month, but he was the one that brought that to our attention. That it used to belong to Union Merchants.
Now people can go to look at some of these old videos on YouTube. And all you got to put in the is it Union County?
It's Union County Museum of SC, I believe, is our web or YouTube channel. It's long, and we have a couple of videos on there. Jerry's got a presentation on there he done on Buffalo Lick Springs. Buffalo Lick Springs for the Historical Society quarterly meeting. And then I have 2 slideshow videos on there called Pictures of the Past from Union County.
It shows, I think, when you mentioned the merchant mill, United Merchant Mill, it showed that at the beginning of it. So, folks, you can go in there and pour these up and watch them.
Yeah.
And
they're
you might see your great grandpa or something.
They're maybe a little long, so pop some popcorn. They run about half an hour. They're 30 seconds of each picture with a 5-second title screen in between it. So there's quite a few pictures in there on each one. There's 2 of those, and we're working on a 3rd one right now. We were fortunate enough with this month's newsletter, Miss Donna Long showed a lot of pictures of Jonesville. So we're going to add those to a new video and hopefully have it up soon.
Yeah, and also it's a lot of pictures on YouTube. We're going to share some. I mean, Facebook page.
Yes,
we'll be able to see those.
Yeah, my assistant director, Miss Carol Willis, she handles all our Facebook posts, does most of our social media work for us.
Robert Grady's our curator.
Yeah, Robert Grady is our curator. He is the museum. He also helps with the newsletter. He does most of the work on the newsletter. I just do some final punching up here and there.
Now, Jerry, when you talking about you walking out the woods, finding this and that right there, or do you see something in the museum or read something and you go exploring? Do you
kind of
take Howard with you?
There's some areas.
It's all rabbit hole.
If you stop and think about it, and this has occurred to me during some of my adventures. If you're riding down the road, you look over and you see a magnolia tree out in the middle of the woods. Okay. There's this good indication that there was a house place there because back in the day, everybody had a magnolia tree. And I have used a lot of magnolia trees, but a lot of that is just knowing where some things are, and there's a lot of things that I don't know where. There's some I've looked, and but one of the things that I did find, and it took me about 3 trips, and I'm not going to tell anybody I was trespassing, but I found the Buffalo Lick Springs, and that was like a Christmas.
That's like
been there in the early.
He can holler in the woods and nobody hear him.
No, but it was very interesting, and they had bottles, and I kind of got involved in the bottles a little bit, but it's pretty interesting. I think what they were trying to do was done by a guy named Childs, who was from Chester. But I think at that time, people thought water had some type of healing powers.
Like Sulphur Springs.
Yes, well, Sulphur Springs, Glen Springs.
Yeah.
And I think what he was trying to do was replicate that in Union County. And it never did. But he was also responsible. They loaded water on the trains. There was bottles that they loaded the water on the trains.
To Charlotte,
right down in Carlisle. And,
we've got a picture of a boxcar down in Columbia that said that's a boxcar that came from Charlotte. It said proudly bottled in Charlotte, North Carolina, with Buffalo Lick Springs water on the side
Yeah,
of it.
they sent the water to Charlotte, and Pepsi Cola bottled a ginger ale underneath it. So, but there's just little
That's great to me.
Buffalo Lick Springs was a big kind of concern. I mean, they had a hotel there.
Yeah.
Can't
find it, but it was there.
Well,
They had
it's
money
still
for
there. It's stood there. The funny thing is, you don't see it advertised much in the Union County papers, but you see it in the Chester Lantern.
But those bottles, I have a couple, but they're highly collectible.
Wow.
I've got some friends of mine that really, I mean, the first thing they ask you,
Are they clear or
they have some amber, they have some that are clear, they have what they call a plate spring bottle, and then there's some. If we get finished here, I'll send you an email or send you a text message to show you some of the pictures, some that I have. But there's some people that have a lot more and a lot better bottles than what I've got.
is the name?
Buffalo Lick Springs Bottling Company or Water Company.
They actually have a buffalo on the bottle.
No, they don't have a buffalo.
Just the name.
Some of the earlier ones did that were printed labels had it on there, but the others are
Well, we're going to look at some pictures now, and y'all can comment on these pictures here. It's just a few of them I pulled off just to let people know what the museum looks like inside, and a couple other things, and how even the young folks from schools and stuff come in and learn learn some history.
We had the entire upper class from, and sadly I had to be out of town that day, but all the entire upper class from Union Christian Day School come to visit us last month, and
Well, I think every history class, even in the university, needs
well,
it.
sadly, the public schools aren't pushing history too much.
Yeah.
That's
Dr. Charles usually brings his through, but he's about the only one at the university that does.
Yeah. Well, let's look at some pictures
One
here.
of the things I'd like to mention there, Jerry, is I've gotten involved with this, finding out because of the textile mills and the community as it was back early on, way before our time, the number of people that came through Union and the descendants of people that came through Union. I'll give you a personal story. My son married a young lady from Springfield, Missouri, and their last names were Casey's. And we had no idea this, but her father has descendants that were born, or not born, but they were buried in the Union Cemetery. So, it stretched all the way out to Springfield, Missouri, the descendants that came through Union that are buried in the cemetery, Union Cemetery. That's another great place if people want to see anything about Union. There were some warriors that were buried at Union Cemetery.
What's this picture here? Now, see, I'm not from around here, so y'all have to help me.
That's the old Union High School that stood on Main Street.
That was on Nelson.
It's right down below.
The YMCA.
Yeah, where you turn to go to the YMCA.
Well, that looks bigger than that. Well,
I think it's perspective of.
Yeah,
It was a pretty good
it
size
was a pretty
school.
good building. It
Yeah.
burned. Right?
Yeah. It stretched from where was it the Jolly? Was that the Jolly building? The still standing?
The Jolly
The
building.
Jolly building all the way back up to almost the gymnasium.
There was a
It was a
library.
small.
There was the Jolly building, which is to the right of this picture here. Then there was a library, which was built in late 50s, I think. And then this was what they refer to as the Jeter building. I'd love to have that picture. I'd like to know who that is coming out of there. That's going to be either Bob Watts or Mr. Turner. It looks like a little bit like Mr. Turner, who was the principal at that time. And those trees eventually had to be cut down. There was trees along the road there in front of it. They cut all those down.
okay.
But it's a great picture.
Did you go to that school?
I finished there in 1966.
Oh,
My class was the first class to spend all 4 years at the new facility out on the Peach Orchard Road. So I never got to attend that building. I knew where it was.
now everybody knows Smith Truck.
Yes,
Mr. Oaks.
Barbara Rippey.
Everybody knows Miss Barbara. Yeah, Miss
Bobby
Barbara,
Rippey.
great lady. Great contributor to Union County also.
Yeah, and I think Dr. Fielder had his office
Upstairs.
upstairs. Yeah, I always wondered about that. Sometimes you're sick, you don't even have to walk. When you walk in the front door, you had to climb some steps. You go
Yeah.
get your exercise.
Yeah, the American Disabilities Act was not in active at that time. Because if you had heart trouble, you had to climb the steps to go see Dr. Fielder.
Yeah, but you know what I loved about the doctors was, and including Dr. Felter, like that. house calls.
My mother's 95 years old, and she has yet to comprehend why we don't have family doctors anymore. You know, the whole medical profession is transitioned into, you know, you may specialists,
Yes.
and she just does not understand why she can't go out of her house and go see her a Dr. Hope or a Dr. Haynes or somebody that.
All of them come to her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what is the building here on the right?
That's Central School.
So actually, it's University of South Carolina
Now.
Union right now.
Yeah, that's where the university. Well,
Yeah.
they have a library over there.
Yeah.
They called it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they're doing. Over there.
There's classrooms over there. There's also some administrative things in the upper floor. But it was called the old Central School
That was a
building,
grade school.
and that's what it was
Okay.
then, because you see those bikes there.
So it's like the 1st through 8th or something like that, or
1 through 6, I think. No, maybe 1 through 6. Because I think in the 8th grade, you went to high school. When you went to the 7th grade, you went across the road to what is University of South Carolina Union now, which was Main Street Junior High.
oh, okay.
And then of course they transitioned. But when I was in school in the 8th grade, you went to the high school. I was in high school for 5 years. They thought I should have been there about 10 years. But
Well, see, when I went to school, and I lived in a small town called Rotis, south of North Carolina, and we had a school there. And it was 1st to the 8th.
yeah,
Then the 9th went to high school. So you spent an extra year in high school, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's, my great grandparents, the reason they left the Mount Lebanon community and moved to the Measle Road was so that his children could get a further education. Because in the rural schools like that time, about 8th grade was about as far as you could progress in
Right.
the rural schools. So he wanted them to get a better education. So he moved to the Measle Road so they could attend Union High School. Well, at that time, you only went to the 11th grade. And I can remember seeing my grandfather's report cards up to the 11th grade, and I'm thinking, did Grandpa quit school? and it didn't dawn on me till later in life, and when I realized and read, I think in Dr. Charles's book, that's as far as the high school went that day. That it wasn't until after, I think, around the time of World War II that they added the 12th grade.
Learn some things. No, speaking of Dr. Charles,
That's Dr. Charles.
Dr. Charles, I guess we would consider him as our poet laureate, if that's going to use that.
He's a walking
He
treasure.
is a knowledgeable individual. We love
That
Dr.
he is.
Charles.
in fact, he was my professor in history.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That interesting artifact there hanging above his head. We can trace that sign up and down Main Street back as far as 1888. If you look in a picture that we have there on the wall, one of the oldest photographs we have of Main Street Union, you'll see it. And it looks like a clock hanging out in front of a store, but it's not actually a clock. It's actually an advertising sign for Tinsley's Jewelry and Watch Repair. So it's right twice a day. But as Tinsley's moved around and changed locations on Main Street, they took the sign with them. And we were fortunate enough to have it donated to us at the museum, and we like pointing it out and get it on prominent display there.
How old is that clock in front of the Arthur State Bank?
It's not that old.
It's not that old.
No,
Okay, because I always wondered if it just looks old.
Maybe 20.
Oh, okay.
When they kind of repaved Main Street down through there. I don't think it's all that old. Of course, that's our display of farm implements, and make a good horror movie just walking down through there.
Yeah, it would. I mean, it looks like them tools.
Yeah, or Twister, if you saw when they jumped in a little wooden building with a tornado fixed to hit them, and all the tools and implements are hanging
Oh,
around.
yes.
Very much similar to that.
But what we go out and grab our cordless drill, and the
Racing bits,
yeah,
hand drills.
the hand drill you got there, and I mean,
Well, I remember using when I was a kid. My grandpa had one of those.
Racing bit.
yeah, racing bit. But I'm talking about the hand drill
That's
that
a hand.
you drilled into the log,
Yeah.
and you drove the pin into or the wooden dowel into it.
That's what those things are.
Put your
They're
house
big drill
together.
bits.
Yeah.
This big around.
Wow.
But just to the left of those kids there is an interesting piece. And I like to show that to young ladies who come into the museum, because what it was is a device for curling hair.
Oh,
But it looks like something
that
All the way on the
yeah,
yes.
it looks like something they would have used for the Bride of Frankenstein.
yeah.
Really, because you put all these little electrical wires to your hair, and they would heat the curlers to set your hair.
Yeah,
But
folks,
the girls these days, you have no idea have any idea how easy it is to fix your hair.
Yeah, folks, if you're looking at this, you see the young boy there that's got the brown shirt on. Look behind you, you see his things hanging down. That is what he's talking about. And you know what? I need one of them to see. Let Edna try it. See.
Yeah,
Oh, she's probably going to kill me.
that's where all my hair went. And there's Miss Carol showing off Mr. Arthur's knife collection of 3 young gentlemen.
Knife collection. Oh, I know several people that collects knives.
Yeah, Mr. Arthur traveled the world. He collected all kind of knives and things from all over the place, and he left us a lot.
I see some pictures behind their heads there too.
Most
One
of
of the gas station.
you're looking at pictures from the Buffalo section we have there on the wall. That's Mr. Griffith's service station, which became Griffith's Restaurant, which is now Don Pancho over there, a little Mexican restaurant. Still same building. Just to the right of it, up kind of high, you'll see an octagonal-shaped building. That was the original Buffalo Hotel. Back in the early 1900s, Buffalo was such a thriving little place; it had its own hotel.
Wow.
Now, they would tear that down in 1925 to build the old brick school that used to stand on the hill right next to the teen center.
Right.
And, of course, they've torn that down since I went to school there in 6th grade. And there's some meal pictures there, some pictures of the company store.
All kind of great things.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that, backing up just a little bit, he's talking about he's talking about Buffalo Mill and that community, and even the Union community. Mr. Duncan had recruiters that went out, and they went to Tennessee, North Carolina, and they recruited people out of the mountains, out of North Carolina, to come to areas like Buffalo and work in the mill. And that's how you got
a lot of some mixed of people.
Well, they came in, they gave them a house. I had one old guy tell me that he came to, well, he actually was Lockhart. He went to Lockhart Mill. They gave him a mill house, and they had indoor plumbing. He thought he had died and gone to heaven. So they brought those people in from all over North Carolina, Tennessee, who lived in the mountains, and they asked my stepdad's daddy why he came to Buffalo. He said, well, he lived in the mountains of Tennessee. You could just grow so much corn, and you could just make so much liquor, and all you did was swap liquor and sell corn. So they had to came to South Carolina to make a living.
Of course, that's a couple shots of our military collection. There's our curator, Mr. Robert Grady, in the second picture there on the left, displaying our 2 battle flags.
And that's uniforms there too.
Yes. Yeah, those display cases were made. I'm not gonna call the store because I'm gonna call it wrong. But one of the stores on Main Street, the timber that built those cases came out of it.
Oh.
And we have that noted on the display case up there, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. Yeah, and that's our textile area up there, showing a lot of the. For some reason, the mills used to take pictures of employees on shifts. For a period of time, they were doing that, and so we have a lot of those pictures. Sadly, I don't have a index to go along with who's in the photo, but it's nice to see those old photos. They would get everybody out in front of the mill, especially Monarch. Monarch was big to do it and take your picture of first shift, first floor, and what have you.
Well, that's great because a lot of them can see, but that's my great grandmother, that's my grandmother, and show their kids, and then that again, the children look like they're having a great time there too.
And we also have a couple of pictures of the mills as they existed, because none of them exist now except for Monarch. It's the only mill left standing.
I think I have a couple of pictures there.
Now, this, of course, is present First Presbyterian Church, and that's a fairly old photo because as we were talking before, that's the old parsonage on the right, and the house that used to stand in the back parking lot that they had to tear down by the time by the 50s rolled around when everybody starts driving. Prior to World War II, not everybody really drove a lot. They had a horse and buggy. Right. But by the time World War II was over, everybody had started getting into cars more, especially by the time the 50s rolled around. So you had to have a parking lot for where all your parishioners to go to. So they had to tear that house down and make a parking lot. And the old parsons, they tore it down eventually.
Now tell us. Now I chopped his name off. You tell me a little bit about what's coming up here.
Thursday night we have a presentation on Thomas Brandon, a Revolutionary War hero here from Union County, in the 2nd Spartan Regiment, which he commanded. and that's going to be put on by Mr. Durant Ashmore, the gentleman there in the picture. He is a Revolutionary War historian out of Greenville County. Of anybody I've talked to about the Revolution in South Carolina, Durant knows more about what went on in the upstate and about the battlefields. He's a landscape guy, architect by trade, and he's also a hobby of a battlefield landscape archaeologist. He's the guy responsible for 7 battlefields in the upstate. Now, one thing a lot of people don't know about the Revolutionary War in South Carolina is there was actually more Revolutionary War battles and engagements in South Carolina than any other of the 13 colonies at the time during the Revolution. Around here, there were people who left Union County and went to Charleston early in the Revolutionary War and participated down there, but it really didn't kick off up here until 1780. 1780, everything was going on around here. There were 8, I call them engagements. One of them was a major battle for sure. That's the Battle of Blackstock. But there were 8 other engagements in Union County.
Wow.
Where Loyalist and Tory forces, Tory forces clashed with the Patriots. But that's going to be Thursday night, June 26th. It's going to be at 7 o'clock in the Fromm Building, which is 103 West Main, which is 1 block back from Arthur State. And that's in the building that most recently housed the MICO Works project.
Right, and now the county council.
County council's meeting there now.
Fromm Building's what.
Yeah,
They prefer it to be called the Fromm Building. So.
Fromm Building, yes.
But yeah, he's going to be there, and he's probably going to do 45 minutes to an hour presentation, maybe a little question and answer session after that. But we're looking forward to it. Jerry and I went over and saw him do a presentation in Lawrence County last month on Elijah Clark, who was a Georgia man who was participated in a lot of the battles in South Carolina during the Revolution, and just phenomenal guy.
You know a guy named, well, you know where Nicholson Mansion is?
Yes.
All right. There was a guy there lived there named Fletcher. Fletcher was a loyalist, and they ran Fletcher out of the upstate South Carolina, and his property came up because
After the war,
they confiscated it, and actually it came up for bid, and nobody would bid against it because Thomas Brandon wanted that property, and he got that. So Brandon, that was a Brandon estate for some time, and then of course his transition. One other interesting fact that I found out about Thomas Brandon, you ever heard of Parrish Mountain in Greenville?
Yes.
After the war, Richard Parrish was an Indian trader, and he owned a lot of property up there. And he was also a loyalist and aligned himself with the Tories. And after the war, after the Revolution, they confiscated that property. Well, Thomas Brandon purchased 400 acres at Parrish Mountain, and he owned that. And later on, he sold it, which was the beginning of Greenville County.
Man.
He was so beloved in Union County at the time, they tried to name Union County, change the name to Brandenburg, but it just wouldn't take.
It wouldn't take.
So it was Unionville up until after the Civil War,
Right.
And then they shortened it to Union.
And one of the things that your viewers may not know and realize, well, how did Union get its name? And it was because there was one church, and there was 3 denominations that used that church. There was the Baptist, the Methodist, and the Presbyterian. All used that one church, and it became Union. And it was down actually below Monarch, about where the Union Cemetery is now.
It stood right near the old Union Church Cemetery.
So a lot of people, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Most of them would think about Union. Well, talk about the Civil War, Union,
Yeah.
like that. But hey, that's great. Now, right here, when it was booming downtown Union.
Breaks your heart to see that.
That's the 40s.
Yeah.
Now, and am I seeing the that sign you're seeing about midway down hanging?
Right about here, I think.
Right.
It may be.
I don't think that's Tinsley's.
On the
I
bottom.
think it is.
No. Tinsley's would have been just up the street there, maybe a little bit more.
Okay.
The old Union Hotel used to stand there, and at one time, he had a shop in the whole Union Hotel, but I'm not sure it was there in the 40s because the Union Hotel was gone by then.
Is that a 49? Looks like a 9.
Well, I know that's a 48 to 52 Chevrolet truck there on the right. I recognize the back of it. and that's some 50 Chevrolets up through 40 Chevrolets up through there, but I can't identify them.
Would we like to have a garage full of those?
Well,
Yeah.
I never because this was before my time, and maybe I wasn't even, maybe 1 or 2 years old. But the Rialto that you see there was a theater. You see that just above that sign that you said?
Yes,
That was a theater. 2 doors down, for a few doors down from that, you see the AN, that was the Duncan Theater.
That means that's 49.
Yeah. And then if you look, you see the Hobnob.
Yeah.
That was a restaurant. I don't remember that, but I've heard my folks talk about going to the Hobnob and buying hot dogs or getting a meal there.
That was on the corner.
Well, you know, you got 2 theaters there. That's a perfect place for a hot dog place.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Just down the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a picture with the Rialto in place where the Duncan is, where the Duncan became. And then later we have a picture with the Duncan in there. And both of them have films on the marquee. So we looked both of those films up and we're able to determine when the Rialto moved 2 doors down and the Duncan moved in there. And those were owned, both of them were owned by the daughters of T.C. Duncan, by his daughter.
Ah.
And her husband, he was a Mr. Eves. But then we know that was about 1949 based on the movies that were on the
I don't think I've ever
marquee
seen
for the
that
Duncan.
picture. It's a good picture.
Mm-hmm. Miss Anna Brown.
And Brown.
Anna Brown is an icon here. She's
Owner of
Publisher
Publisher
County News.
County News.
yes. She keeps work. I imagine she's just working there at that particular time, and now
Well, I think that's the Union Times office because that's where she worked
you're right.
back in the day. And on the right there is a picture. It looks like a buffalo meal.
Yeah, it's one of the towers.
One of the towers,
Yeah.
and during its heyday, that was a big building.
Was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fortunate enough, I lived when it was still standing. It's still in operation. I can remember the kids when I was in junior high. A lot of them would go over and work on weekends. That's what they called defenders, cleaning up,
Yeah.
keeping the lint and stuff and the dust. And
I know my granddaughter. She's little Lydia, and she driving by there. She'd see them 2 towers. She'd say, "There's a witch lives up in that towers."
Interesting fact. Robert and I were curious about the clock up there. And we figured it was some big monstrosity thing going up in the early 1900s when the mill was put. Yeah. Come to find out, we found a guy who'd been actually up in the towers in fairly recent years and took some pictures of it. It's a little bitty small mechanism. It's not much bigger than an alternator or generator off a car. It's just runs on the shaft and drives those clock hands.
He took
Yeah.
a drone. He
So,
took a-
well, see, I took a drone and flew around it.
maybe it was you
Also,
that did it. Yeah.
that went around it just like that. I kind of wanted to show her there wasn't no witches up there.
Yeah.
Well-
During the daytime, anyhow.
But we're at the top of the hour. I really appreciate both of you coming on
My pleasure.
and talking about the museum, the Historic Society, and people. You can go online and you can search it in Google and Facebook and just get involved. And if you know any history, write it down
Please.
and
Share it with someone.
share it. And go on Facebook where you can find it and type it out and share it out there with
We have our website online at unioncountymuseum.com. It has all the links for our email addresses for the staff at the Union County Museum, as well as for the Historical Society.
and join the Historical Society and help support it.
Please do.
Please.
Well, thank both of you. I really appreciate you both coming on.
Pleasure. Yes, sir. Thank you much.
Well, folks, that's it for Prime Time with Jerry McKee, and stay tuned for next Monday. I'm going to be off. I'm going to be on vacation down in Myrtle Beach, retirement / birthday. I mean, I'm having a huge celebration, so you're not going to see my face online. I know you're going to be crying about that, but thank you for tuning in. And if you had any questions, feel free to type in there. And if you have a question for these guys, we can get a hold of them. I'm Jerry McKee. You have a great night.